Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The New York Yankees have designated DJ LeMahieu for assignment. A sad day, for sure, for the Yankees, for DJ LeMahieu, for fans. This was something that you knew was a possibility. Really, honestly, going back to last season, DJ LeMahieu was one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player, on the 2019 and 2020 Yankee teams. To take it back, he signs a 2-year deal with the Yankees, after having been with the Colorado Rockies for many years, and was a really good player on Colorado. Now, obviously, there's the whole Coors Field thing, but still, he was a legitimately really, really good player, good hitter. Had already won a batting title in 2016. Had already made a couple of all-star teams in the National League. And the Yankees signed him for what ended up being a bargain. It was a 2-year deal worth $24 million overall, so $12 million per season. And what did he do? He ends up finishing 4th in the MVP race in 2019 and then 3rd in 2020. 2020 was the shortened season, where they played, about 60 games or so, thereabouts. And both those seasons, unbelievable. He actually didn't even start opening day of the 2019 season. He was on the bench for the first game, but pretty soon he took over and ended up with 26 homers, 102 RBIs, a .327 batting average, but 145 games. And, really, I think the most memorable moment comes in a loss, and it was the DJ LeMahieu home run in the 9th inning off of Ozuna, the Astro closer at the time, that basically kept the Yankees alive in Game 6. Now, of course, we know that Altuve homered against Chapman, walked it off. Yankees are eliminated, but in that moment, that was something special. And what capped off just an unbelievable season for him, where really at that point, he was primarily a second baseman. He's always had a bit of a utility role at the Yankees, between first, second, and third. But at that point in time, he was, although, I'd have to actually think about that because Didi was still on the team at short, and then there's Glaber. So DJ at that point actually might have been more playing a bit of first, but then in 2020, where Glaber moves over to short, DJ was definitely at second base. Either way, he provided versatility and was a really good fielder. That's the thing. DJ, really, wherever you put him, I'd say primarily at second base is where he was at his best, and that was where he was most accustomed to with Colorado. But it didn't matter you moved around the infield. He got the job done and was just a dynamite hitter. 2 outs, runners in scoring position. There wasn't anyone you would want more than LeMahieu. So in that shortened season, he bats .364. He bats .364 with an over 1 OPS. And ends up as one of the finalists for the MVP voting. He would finish in 3rd. And as far as memorable moments in the playoffs, I would say the biggest one that year was he had a big RBI single up the middle against Cleveland in Game 1 of that best of 3. I guess it was a wild card series. Again, that was a different format completely that year, but that was a big one. And yeah, he was just on a team that had Aaron Judge, right? Well, let's remember, Aaron Judge at this point has now been in the league as a full-time starter for his 3rd and 4th season, yet LeMahieu was the guy. Again, as hard as it's been, and to take nothing away from Judge, but he was the one that you would one up in a big spot, no doubt about it. No question about it. And honestly, his 2019 playoffs were awesome. 2020 wasn't amazing in the 7 games that were played between Cleveland and Tampa. But here's the fucked up thing. So DJ LeMahieu, contract extension, 6-year deal, which fans would have gone crazy if they didn't do that. Myself included. LeMahieu at that time, you had to bring him back. There was no question about it. It ends up not being a contract that ages well at all, and really never was that great from the beginning. the money per season was actually extremely reasonable. $15 million per season, which, it's only a little bit of a bump. Now, obviously, he's getting older, so you have to take that into account. But like at the time, the money per year was seen as maybe a bargain strong, but it was like a great deal. But it was the years that was always like, okay, 6 years is quite a lot. And that ended up proving to be very true. Whereas there were different negotiations where they could have went with a higher average annual value and went with less years. In hindsight, you kind of wish that's the way it went down. As LeMahieu wasn't able to make it as a Yankee through the contract with about a year and a half to go. Because you could have easily seen something along the lines of, 4 years, like a 4-year deal that could have been worth somewhere in the $20 to $25 million range. Like that could have happened. And if that did happen, yes, it would have kind of, I guess, been a little bit harder in those given seasons, but you would have basically wiped your hands clean of it. All this to say, like LeMahieu, here's the sad thing. He never even played another postseason game with the Yankees after 2020. Even though they made the 1-game wild card against the Red Sox in 21, they, made it to the ALCS in 22, made it to the World Series in 24. DJ LeMahieu, it was 9 games in 2019 and 7 in 2020. That was it. And it speaks to a lot of injuries and as well ineffectiveness. I would certainly say that the injuries were the reason why in 21 and 22, he, didn't play any postseason games. For 24, yes, technically he went on the injured list, but it really was a matter of ineffectiveness. He really dropped off a cliff big time last season, majorly. So to kind of go through it, 2021 was, he ends up playing. The interesting thing is this, he ends up playing 150 games. But he really sort of broke down by the end of the season to the point where he was not on that roster or in that lineup for that 1-game wild card against the Red Sox. Just kind of a very pedestrian season for LeMahieu. Batting average was still, it wasn't anywhere near what it was 2 years before, but 268 was certainly well above average, but a 711 OPS is pretty average. Then 2022, as I remember it, got off to he was very good in the first half of 22. Like there's spurts of time where you kind of saw the old LeMahieu. And I would say the first half of 22, you kind of saw it. But then injuries take its toll. His numbers kind of drop off, and they're somewhat similar to where they were in 21. 12 homers, 46 RBIs. Now the 12 homers is a step up because he played 125 games in 22, but a 734 OPS. His defense at this point, as I remember, was still pretty decent. I don't remember being bad. And then 23, it gets worse. Although again, like the numbers end up all kind of 21, 22, and 23. The numbers are all fairly similar, but injuries take its toll. 22 to the point where again he was out of the postseason mix for that. And then 23. You saw maybe him coming back around towards the end of the year. Now, the Yankees didn't make the playoffs in 23, but it seemed like maybe there was kind of a resurgence. Again, what I remember is the first half of 22 and the back end of 23 where it's like, all right, maybe there's optimism. But 24 was a disaster. He gets hurt in spring training and just never gets it going. It was truly horrific. This 2025 season was a step up. 24, really bad. 67 games, 2 homers, 26 RBIs, a 204 batting average. It was bad. And defensively, it was bad. And he was really exclusively at third base at this point in 24. Well, a combination of first and third. It's interesting. Second base for LeMahieu really dropped off a lot. Although this season, he only played second base. It was very weird if you really thought about it, where LeMahieu, like, at a point in time, that was his primary position, right? 2019, it's a mix of first, second, and third, but it's mostly second. In 2020, it is mostly second, with a little bit of first and third mixed in. Then in 21, still mostly second, right? And keep in mind, like at this point, Gleyber Torres, like he's being moved back over to second within this time frame. Then 22, it's really pretty much divided evenly between first, second, and third. 23 is where, starting in 23 is where it's different, where he's basically not playing much second at all, and it's first and third, as well as 24. But then this year, you bring in Goldschmidt to play first, right? So that changes things a bit. Although Rizzo had been there, but Rizzo was hurt a lot too. I don't know what would have happened if LeMahieu came out of spring training healthy, because the plan was, I believe, to have Jazz Chisholm Jr. play second. Although maybe, I'm trying to think when they started talking about Jazz being second base, and maybe it was in conjunction with LeMahieu getting hurt. Because then Jazz goes down and LeMahieu comes back, and it allows LeMahieu to play second base, a position he had really not played much at all in a few seasons. And the range just was not there for DJ. Like the defense, I felt like last year wasn't great at third. The arm strength is not there. He has a tough time getting the balls to his left or right. So he's becoming a minus defensively. And at this point, was he better than last year? Yeah, offensively, but he's really just a singles hitter. The juice and the pop is gone for DJ LeMahieu. So, he ends up batting 266, which isn't horrible, again, but a 674 OPS. It just goes to show you, again, like, not much of a home run threat. And ultimately, they designated for assignment after it was decided that they didn't want to have Jazz at third anymore. And I don't blame them. Jazz did not look comfortable at third. LeMahieu was not giving you a good defensive second base. And so they decide to, you knew basically when they said that Jazz is moving over second and that LeMahieu can't play third. Okay, so what's his role? Like, it's still, actually seeing it still is a bit of a shock because, again, of what he meant to this team. This is a big deal, but his role on this team was not much. This is the right decision. It still hurts, though, when you look back on things, right? And so LeMahieu ends up playing basically about 7 seasons with the Yanks. The first 2 being unbelievable. The next 3 being pretty middling, in my opinion, at best, kind of. Last year being an absolute disaster, and this year, maybe slightly better, but really not that good. So, yeah, he was one of the longer tenured Yanks as well, right? I was trying to think about this. I think the only Yankees tenured longer than LeMahieu, as far as service time on the actual MLB team, I think, is Judge, Stanton, and Loaizaga. And the Loaizaga one, that's kind of a random one, right? But I could be forgetting someone, but I think LeMahieu was then the 4th. And then I think the 5th would be Garrett Cole. So it just goes to show you, like, LeMahieu, he was here for a while. He really, really was. And it's sad to see him go. I don't know what his future holds. Apparently he was, not thrilled, and he didn't want to be released. Like, apparently he was maybe going to try to work at third, but I think he was actually the one that came to the Yankees over the offseason and said that, the third base might be a bit of a challenge for him, but yet he was maybe willing to do it. Either way, this is for the best, sadly. And I don't know, maybe he will latch on. This kind of reminds me, although, like, my viewpoint of these players is very different. Aaron Hicks, they designated him for assignment at the Yankees, that is, in 2023. Now, for that, at the time, he had about 2.5 seasons left on his deal. The Yankees had about $30 million on that one, whereas this one's about $22 million. That one was May of 23, where he had a contract through this season, actually, which is scary to think about. And they did it. And so they set that precedent. Again, LeMahieu's contribution to the Yankees is far more than Hicks. I'm not trying to compare the two. But and my point is that Hicks actually did sign on with the Orioles at the end of 23. And actually had a very good season. Then he went to the Angels of 24, sucked, and then that's it. I don't think we're going to see Aaron Hicks in the majors again. With LeMahieu, I think this is someone that still wants to play the game. I think there's still a desire there. So I think that he'll sign somewhere. I'm not sure where, and we'll see, what comes of it. For the Yankees now, as far as third base goes, Jazz is going to stay at second, and I think they should keep him there. For third base, it's not a great-looking crew. Basically, you're looking at Oswald Peraza, who's very good defensively but can't hit. Yorby Vivas, who, like, I think that there's potential there as a hitter in this league, but when he was up the first time, didn't do too much. He didn't, right? Like, he is someone that ultimately I think is probably best served right now in AAA, but I think it's worth giving him a chance now. And then like JC Escar is kind of your emergency third baseman that, maybe every so often you could throw him over there. But all that to say again, that the Yankees are likely to make a trade for a third baseman. That's what's going to happen. No question about it. They're going to try to do it to what varying degree is the player of significance at third. I don't know. But I think that they're going to try to, do the best they can and improve that position because they need it. They really do. And the Oswaldo Cabrera injury doesn't help matters either, who is likely out for the season. Not that you wanted him as your starter at third, but he would have been, like, let's say he was healthy. That's what it would be right now. He would have been the third baseman. So, again, DJ LeMahieu designated for assignment. Some amazing years for DJ. Was really a fan favorite, myself included, really. It was just, you couldn't ask for anything better from 2019 to 2020. And then unfortunately after that, after the contract extension, it really went downhill to the point that he has been let go with a little shy of a year and a half left on the deal. About roughly $22 billion. The Yankees will be eating that contract through 2026. So wishing DJ LeMahieu the best of luck wherever he heads to next. And now the Yankees will certainly be looking to improve and make a trade for a third baseman.